So it has occurred to me or come to my attention that Bob Iger is back as the CEO of Disney. And a lot of people really feel encouraged by this. They really feel like this is sort of the turning point for Disney, that they're finally going to turn around and kind of come back to the side of protecting kids and come back to the side of morality. And I think that we are a little bit mistaken on this. But I will say this one thing about Bob Iger. I agree with him. I was listening to him at a recent town hall where a cast member asked a very important question about Disney's role in politics. I want you to listen to this exchange, and then let's kind of talk about this for a second.
Here's a virtual question. Many cast members had wished that Disney stayed out of politics. Will Disney stay out of making political statements?
I think there's a misperception here about what politics is. And I think that some of the subjects that have proven to be controversial as it relates to Disney have been branded political, and I don't necessarily believe they are. I don't think when you are telling stories and attempting to be a good citizen of the world that that's political. Just not how I view it. Do I like the company being embroiled in controversy? Of course not. It can be distracting, and it can have a negative impact on the company. And to the extent that I can work to kind of quiet things down, I'm going to do that. But I think it's important to put in perspective what some of these subjects are and not just simply brand them political.
Now, that's interesting because I actually agree with Bob Iger. I think a lot of the questions that we have surround the cultural issues that we're discussing. Should we get into the politics of this? Should we discuss the political impact of this? And often we are saying these are not political conversations. These are actually moral conversations that we have to involve ourselves in because we actually know what morality is. Bob Iger is saying the same thing. In a sense, he's saying these conversations are actually not political conversations. He's saying we're simply telling the world stories, but he's telling the world stories from his perspective. And many of the Disney employees are telling the world stories from their perspective. So it's kind of a sleight of hand here. He's saying we're not going to wade into political waters, but then he says, because these really are not political issues. And in a sense, he's absolutely right. My encouragement to the Christian is to recognize that when we are talking about issues of human sexuality and sexual identity, when we ask the question, what is marriage? This is not a political issue. This is a moral issue. And no one can tell us what morality is except for God himself. The Christian has the answer to all of these questions in culture. And just because an issue becomes political in its discourse doesn't mean that it stops being a question of morality.